Today on the 01581, I welcome back Senator Michael Moore to give us an update on things happening at Beacon Hill and here in his district. Hi, and welcome back to today's show. Senator Moore, welcome back.
Thank you. It's nice to be back again.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
And I love your spring outfit.
Yes. So we're taping today opening day for the Red Sox. So kind of clashing a little bit, but and in all fairness, this is a way old one.
Oh, wow.
But it's all I had. It's all I had in the closet.
Well, still shows your spirit.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I won't be there today, but maybe I'll.
How are they doing so far this year?
You know what? I hear that they're actually really good. They have their pitching record and stats are very good. I haven't really followed them, but I've heard good things. So. Surprising things, actually, I think.
Well, you hear all the sports analysts and all that, and leading up to they're going to be horrible. They're not doing this and that. So
I hear that they have like that. What was it? The 2014 team, like that spirit.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
if they come out with energy and get the fans going and have a half decent record, I'm pretty excited. So.
Yeah. Well, I just hope that that if they start the season off well, it's not. When I was growing up. That's when Fred Lynn, Jim Rice, they would start the season off great, and then they'd collapse right at the end.
Right. We lived through many years of these young people don't know what the real Red Sox were like all those years.
All those years, yeah.
Anyway, okay, so we're going to cover a couple topics in the time we have today. We're going to start with something that has certainly state implications, but also has been a topic of local interest, which was most recently at our town meeting, as we were talking about before the show. We had a citizens petition to ask the town to vote on a non-binding resolution to require parents to opt into sex education for their students, which of course is the opposite. Right now, it's you opt out. That's the way it's mandated. So, what we're going to talk today about is the Healthy Youth Act, Senate Bill 2686. It's a bill that would ensure Massachusetts public schools to teach sexual health education curriculum using age-appropriate, inclusive, medically accurate, and research-based information on sex relationships and consent. So what do you know about it? What's your role in it? Very relevant for the folks here in Westboro.
So what I know about it, the Senate has passed this multiple times. I'm going to say this is maybe our third time passing it, and it's never been able to move through the House. So we don't know how that's going to fare again. So, but look, I think this is should be a no-brainer. Think about it. I mean, put yourself back at that age, and you're a child, and even from parent point of view, don't you want your child to be educated to know what the ramifications of certain activities are?
Absolutely.
Or if there are certain choices that you're going to make in your life, I mean, the child should feel comfortable in realizing that you're not different. Everyone has these types of.
There are other people like you. Well, and I can say from personal experience, I think that there are some topics that weren't discussed when I was in school and had sex education and different lifestyles that of LGBTQ. Just it wasn't discussed. Like it might have been a sentence. And so, as an individual questioning myself at that time, it was sort of like, okay, if they're not really talking about this, then we just must not talk about it. It must not be okay. And so I think we have to talk about it in a way that isn't persuasive, but that it is basically this is what it is. And
it's not coercion to certain lifestyles. It's so it's got to be age appropriate.
Absolutely.
So I've gone to town meetings where I'll have constituents come up to me with some really crazy stories
Sure.
of what they've heard
Yep.
third or second. I was going to second, third, or fourth hand on what's being taught.
Right.
And it's really not. And parents, again, as we said, parents have an option to opt out.
And they can review the curriculum.
I was just going to
Yes.
say that.
Yep.
So they
Yep.
have a choice in reviewing the curriculum.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
Yep. Yep.
look, I hope it goes through.
Yep. What if this may not be a fair question? What has been the resistance in the House to passing it in the past? Like, what are the hurdles? Because it does feel sort of like, I mean, you guys have now, you're on this third crack at the bat here. What are the hurdles? Is it the content, or are there other peripheral things that are influencing?
Right now, we think it's just the House leadership have issues with this concept of passing a broad, comprehensive bill
Okay.
of this nature. So
Okay.
I don't know if they're buying into a lot of the rhetoric that's out there.
Okay.
But,
Okay. Okay.
but-
All right. Well, we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
it,
Okay. And when would they take that up? When would the House, like, is it like in the next couple months? Is it in the fall?
Well, that's been the problem. They haven't taken it up at all.
Okay.
In the past. So
Okay.
basically where they've never done this bill before,
Okay.
I would think if they're going to do it, they would have to do it by July 31st, because that's when
Okay.
our roll call sessions end.
Got it. Okay.
And then from the 31st until December 31st, we have informal sessions.
Right. Right. And we've talked about that, about
no,
what that process is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Look, if they were to do this
Mm-hmm.
in formal session or an informal, I can't remember, but I don't know if it was a unanimous vote, or it was pretty close to a unanimous vote in the Senate.
Yep.
So I don't think it would be very controversial.
Sure.
No one would stand up in informal session and
Right.
object to this
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
Senate side.
Understood.
So,
Okay.
Well,
so folks who are watching this and are interested in this particular topic, if you do have questions, because you can always reach out to your Senator Moore, but Representatives Hannah Kane and Kate Donahue represent Westboro, and as this is a matter now sort of in the hands of the House, if you have questions or concerns, reach out to them in their constituent services. I'm sure that they'd love to hear from you.
And just quickly, so everyone knows,
Yeah.
Requiring medically accurate curriculum for public school teaching, schools teaching sex ed. As we just said, it's got to be offer sex education must have curriculum that is age appropriate, medically accurate, inclusive of LGBTQ+ health, and lessons on consent, protecting and enhancing parental notification rights. So that's been a big issue when we've
Yeah.
been addressing this.
Yep.
So the parents have the right to remove their children from all or part of sex and relationship education programming if they choose. Update parent notification guidelines, including requiring notices to be sent in English and other languages commonly spoken in the district. And the Department of Early and Secondary Education would be setting the education framework for
Right.
this. So if there's concerns about a municipality that may go one way or another,
Right.
DESE is involved in setting this curriculum.
And I did note here that the last time this was updated was, I think, over 10 years ago, and this the Senate bill includes criteria that it's a requirement to update the framework at
Yes.
least every 10 years,
Yeah.
which makes sense,
Yeah, it
right?
does,
I
yeah.
mean, as we were talking when we opened this, right? Things have changed,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
all right, good. So that's item sort of number one, and then we're going to transition to a topic I know you've been in the news quite a bit about. You've been very active on a bill. The Senate acts to produce to prevent abuse and exploitation online is Senate Bill 2703 regarding revenge porn. So
Yes.
what is it? What's the what's happening with it?
So basically, revenge porn is, and we've seen young people be victims of this, but also we've seen celebrities also have been victims of this, where someone takes, you have a relationship, or you have a young child, or someone thinks they're in a relationship, they allow pictures to be taken, and the next thing you know, it's those photographs being texted or sent to people unknowingly, and sometimes the photographs aren't even, there's no consent to the photographs taken. So this is to try to eliminate that, hopefully provide a deterrent from someone that's going to use those photographs in a way that's going to embarrass the person, or or cause trauma in their life.
Sure.
So, but there is another aspect of this bill that if we can get it passed, it would be the first time Massachusetts would do this, and would be joining a very few amount of states, and that's changing the definition of abuse.
Okay.
And so this is a piece of legislation that I had filed.
Okay.
That because it does have a nexus to this. It's called coercive control.
Okay.
And so we all know abuse as being you can put someone in fear,
Right.
or the physical
Yep.
assaulting of someone.
Sure.
This is using other measures to control the person. So I
Yeah,
have.
I'm thinking
I have,
like blackmail or something.
well,
like,
similar to that.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
have photographs or
Yep,
that you're going to worry that I'm going to, as
Sure,
you say, to
sure.
look at do this or that,
Yep.
or I'm going to try to control your behavior.
Yep.
So this would define that in a way so that that would now classify as abuse
Interesting.
and domestic violence. So, so this is something that I think it's the first year we filed it. Been working with a lot of domestic abuse
Sure.
survivors and advocacy groups.
Yep.
So the House actually passed this.
Okay.
It came over to the Senate.
Okay.
It's gone to a conference committee because with everything we do,
Yeah.
the Senate makes a few changes
Sure.
from what the House does
Yep.
and vice versa. So
Yep.
now it's gone. Well, it's kind of sitting in limbo right now.
Okay.
Sometimes, rather than creating a conference committee, they can work out the differences.
Sure.
So we accept each other's
Sure.
changes.
Sure.
So that would be the best scenario.
Okay.
But if it has to go to a conference committee, then it's
a little more protracted.
right.
Yep.
Talking to the Senate main sponsor of the revenge porn bill, he doesn't think there's going to be a lot of issues
Okay.
with getting the bill out
Sure.
and finally passed. So we're hoping that's going to move forward.
Did this particular bill come out of, when you mentioned the sponsors, a particular constituent request, or was it sort of just looking at a broader, things happening in a broader?
This was being looked at a broader
Okay.
scope with everything going on with social media.
Social media.
And then we had on the revenge porn, on the coercive control, that's where we had the victims
Yep.
of some sort of domestic violence
Sure.
come forward
Yeah.
that they would, telling their stories how,
Yeah.
look, he's not physically abusing me,
Right.
but he's using these other methods to
Yeah.
try to control me or
Wow.
something. So,
Scary.
yes, so the provisions of this
Yep.
requires the Office of Child Advocate to develop educational diversion programs for adolescents and the consequences of sexting and sharing explicit images of themselves to the others.
Yeah.
And it directs the Department of Early and Secondary Education to encourage school districts to implement instruction on age-appropriate media literacy, and then also defines the, again, coercive control.
yeah.
And it increases fines from $1,000 to $5,000 and penalties for those found guilty of sharing explicit images.
Well, and I think there's also another layer of this, which I think sometimes people don't understand, that when, and I actually know of specific situations where content was shared outside of Massachusetts
Yep.
of a minor,
Oh, okay.
and that gets into a whole...
Now you get federal.
Right, and I'll say sort of harm was not intended. This wasn't what I would call a coercive situation, but where you have young people kind of being like, look, I got a picture of, my girlfriend or whatever, and I'm sharing it with my buddy who's in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And that gets picked up. That becomes a whole. So I think sometimes it's so easy to, hey, I'm going to share a picture of this, right? People really need to think about,
What's the ramifications of
I got to go back to an old adage of, would your grandmother be or your mom be okay with you sharing this, right? Would you send this to your mom?
That's right.
Or your grandmother?
That's
right?
a good point of view.
I don't know. You know.
So one issue that came up with this was Taylor Swift.
Okay.
When this was all going on, this gets into deep fakes
Yep.
and that.
Yep,
So where
sure.
they took her face
Yep.
and they put it on a naked body,
Oh.
and then that started
Yep.
being circulated
Sure,
out.
sure.
So
And it could happen. I mean, with AI now, some of the
that's-
things, AI is amazing, right? I mean,
Right.
and it will bring innovation, and
but with the internet was supposed to was supposed to be a benefit to everyone. It did. It does
Right.
have some benefit, but
right, but
there
yeah,
are also the
I mean,
negatives that
right, exactly,
that people use to
exactly.
exploit.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, kind of speaking about keeping people safe, we'll wrap up with our final item here, which is the SAFER Act.
Yes.
So this is the SAFER Act was passed by the Senate. It's Bill 2572, and it's an act to sensibly address firearm violence through effective reform. Now, Massachusetts has really strict, some of the strictest in the nation, gun control laws. How is this different? What does it do?
So Massachusetts, I think we're second to Hawaii as far as the rate of gun violence.
Okay.
So, you know, our laws, I think Illinois or Chicago may have some of the tougher
highest,
laws.
yeah,
but they have
tougher laws, yeah.
But they
they
have high crime rate and
Right,
violence rate.
right.
So I think we've got some good common sense laws in place.
Okay.
What this would do would, so right now, the House passed a different version.
Okay.
Their version was 140 pages.
Okay.
We passed a 35-page bill,
Okay.
which we think addressed more of the focus issues that we
Okay.
need to concentrate
Yep,
on.
yep.
So our bill would, well, there was one amendment I had added to the bill. Right now, a silencer, there's a federal definition, and silencers are legal in some states it's not, but in Massachusetts they're not.
Okay.
But we had a different definition.
Okay.
So
From the federal-
definition.
okay,
So
okay.
we codified the definition, so it's the same. So it's
Consistency
not-
makes
right,
sense, yep.
Consistency. We also prohibit ghost guns.
Which
so
is?
ghost. So we have ghost guns and this 3D printed guns.
Mm.
So a ghost gun could be where I sit at home, I call, or through the use of a computer,
Mm-hmm.
I order all the various parts through multiple different manufacturers, the pieces of a firearm.
Okay.
And then I put that firearm together.
Okay.
No serial numbers, no identification
Hence the
point.
ghost,
So
okay.
that's the ghost gun. Now, that's also with a 3D printed gun. You could, now if you have a 3D printer, you sit at home, you make the gun, and now we have no record of that firearm. There's no serialization of it. There's even no confirming that you have an LTC, that you're even
Right,
authorized to have an
right,
LTC.
right.
So the Senate version,
Interesting.
we ban it. The House version has some regulations that go along with it, so there's some difference there.
Okay.
We also ban, there's what's called a Glock accessory.
Okay.
And they'll trigger activating trigger switches.
Okay.
So basically what it is you take and this can be made through a 3D printer.
Okay.
You take a little clip, a piece that you can be made, you put into your handgun.
Like a standard, like an issued licensed gun?
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
You put it in there, and it turns that semi-automatic gun into an automatic weapon.
Okay.
So again, that was banned federally.
Okay.
It wasn't banned
Okay.
in the state level.
Okay.
Now, I specifically had Worcester Police calling that they were performing drug raids,
Yep.
and I think they said this was back in the spring, 7 of the 10 that they had performed,
We're using this?
they had the Glock accessories when they did the raid. Now, they couldn't, if they went in there or
Yes.
say they arrested
Yep.
they went to some call and the person only had the Glock accessory,
Yep.
well, that wouldn't be a violation.
Okay.
Well, that they could enforce. It would
Yep.
federally, but they would have to call ATF
Yeah,
or the
yep.
federal. So there was no state enforcement
Okay.
mechanism.
Okay.
So that was added to it. We also
Okay.
included sensitive places to our bill.
Okay.
So state property, state buildings, well, not all state property, state buildings you would be prohibited from having a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
We do the same thing on the local level for
Okay.
local buildings and
Okay.
property
Okay.
owned by the town.
Yep, yep.
But on the House bill, they just ban it. We actually make it a local option where you have to opt out. So if you have a community,
Okay.
if you have a community that they determine, we don't have a problem with someone that, I'm saying going to a library, going to your town hall,
Yeah.
or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
If they have an LTC
Yep.
and they don't
And
have an
they
issue
have
with it.
yep, yep.
Now, part of the thinking on this philosophy is that you have areas outside 128,
Sure.
excuse me, inside 128,
Yep.
or maybe even Central Mass, some communities. you don't want that to happen. But as you further go
West.
north or west,
Yeah.
You have people who hunt that
Sure.
are doing
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it may be more acceptable
Yeah,
there. So we
yeah.
wanted to give the community the option that if they wanted to
Okay.
reduce
So they
some of the,
would opt,
so they would have to go to town meeting, and they would have to opt out. Similar to like instead of
Okay.
an opt-in, you would
okay.
they would
So
opt out.
you would opt out, and if you opted out, then it would be,
Then they would allow
They
in
would
those
allow it.
in those
Okay,
buildings that they
understand.
want.
Okay. Okay.
We
All
also
right.
we also create a so we did harassment prevention orders.
Okay.
We add that. Requiring courts to compel the surrendering of firearms by individuals who are subject to a harassment protection order, who pose a threat. We also expand the red flag law.
yeah, okay, I was going to ask you about that.
So the red flag law, that's where right now, if you are in a relationship, a partner or a spouse or certain family members, you can go to the police and say, look, I know this
So-and-so
individual
has,
has some mental health issues, has
Yep.
some issues going on. The police can go seize the weapons.
Yep.
It's then followed up by a court hearing, so
Yep.
there is due process.
Yeah, due process, yeah.
So the House version that came out expanded it out to employers, teachers, a whole list of other entities.
Okay.
We
You
just narrowly did healthcare providers.
Okay.
And the healthcare provider, it's going to be someone you have, I think, at least a 6-month relationship with.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
now, so we expand that out there.
Got it.
We establish the emerging firearm technology committee because right now you have smart technology, smart guns. So you have right now, there are some weapons that can be made that they can use the biometrics
Yep,
where
yep.
only those fingerprints are biometrics and you
Sure.
allow the gun to fire.
Okay.
So this would study all the different
Okay.
issues that are out there.
Well, I mean, we weren't talking about 3D homemade
Right.
weapons before, so
Yeah.
understanding kind of emerging technologies and, balancing Second Amendment rights, right? Second Amendment, did I get that?
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Second, okay. Second Amendment rights and as well as public safety, I think it's important to be able to.
Well, and that's been the balance,
Yeah.
I think we've done a pretty good job in Mass
Mm-hmm.
balancing the Second Amendment rights and compared to and not restricting
Mm-hmm.
someone's Second Amendment constitutional rights. So here's this one. In this bill, we also, this was another one of the amendments that I had passed. The House version had a component where it established a live firing course. So right now, if you want to get your LTC, you can sit through the classroom.
Yep.
The majority of the courses, if they let you hold a gun,
Yep.
that you've been
That's it.
lucky.
Yep.
I actually sponsor every year a firearm education class where you sit through the class and then you go out and you actually shoot the weapon.
I went through that.
Okay.
I have a license to carry.
Okay.
I did it because my grandfather has this, I have a World War II gun from him.
Oh.
It's in a case. It's
Yeah.
but because I have it in my possession, I was told you need to have a license to carry.
Yes. Yep.
So I was like, okay. So I went through the course, and I will say and I'm not a,
Was it a live fire course?
yes.
Okay.
So I will say from having gone through that, sat through the 4 or 6 hour class, whatever
Right.
it was, we got to hold the gun in the class, and that was an experience, honestly, just holding a gun because I've never held one.
Yeah.
But then to be able to take that in a practical way and fire a couple different types of guns in a range
Okay.
was, for me personally, impactful. I mean, so I think it was sort of a meaningful exercise of just, because one of the guns I'm going to say it was semi-automatic,
Okay, yeah.
and so
So
firing.
had a clip you put in?
Yeah,
Okay.
firing that and how quickly you could fire
Yep.
versus, I'm going to say it was a revolver, but you can tell
Okay.
how much I know about these things, where it was like one bullet and then you had to kind of, so to me, it was impactful to go through that experience and to be like, oh my God, like would I know, okay, now I've been through this course, would I be comfortable in having one of these in my home and knowing how to use it if I needed to, or if and to protect my family? Like, I wasn't. Like, I was kind of like, I'm getting this really for, like a historical purpose, if you will, to preserve that gun.
So think how many people, even after you've taken that live fire, may have a weapon and all right, they fired it once.
Well, right.
Are they really
I wouldn't
safe?
be ready, but
So when we had this class, one thing that we noticed that we actually had in the past, some people that would take the class, they'd then go out in the afternoon, revolver, shotgun, rifle.
okay,
Actually had people at the end of some not
I think
often.
we did a rifle. I was like, my God, look out.
But not often. But we've had people say, you know, thanks for sponsoring the class.
Yep.
Originally I was going to get a firearm.
Yep.
Now that I fired one, I don't want one.
Yeah.
So the education component is, I think, and I mean, do you really want someone sitting in the classroom for 3 hours, 4 hours, and then they go out and get their LTC and they've never fired a weapon?
This might be unpopular, but one thing I observed when I got mine, and I just applied again for a very limited scope, but is that when you apply, you get an unrestricted, like.
Now you do.
Okay. So when I got my license, I was like, unrestricted, and so I looked up, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
And to me, even though I'm very pro Second Amendment, it's a pretty wide aperture for someone that, may not be skilled in actually knowing how to, having just gone through that one course.
So last session, there was a federal case, the Bruin decision, that came out of New York.
Okay.
And what that decision stated, that you used to in Mass, the chief could give it for hunting and sports,
Okay.
self-protection, and then all lawful purposes.
Okay.
That Bruin decision, the federal decision came down and said you couldn't do that.
Oh, it couldn't restrict it.
Right, it had to be.
Okay.
So we had that.
Interesting. So it is what it is.
So it is what it is.
Okay.
So in the live fire, the
Yeah.
House mandated that it go into if the bill would pass, it would automatically go into effect.
Yep.
This is where I'm trying to balance the Second Amendment rights
Yep.
with other.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of issues with this. You have do we have enough ranges for people who want to
Right.
get firearms?
Sure. What's the cost?
And that the cost could be a constitutional issue, because
Yep.
now if you price something out
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
ability of someone to access
Yeah.
their
Yep.
constitutional right,
Yep.
then there's the liability.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an amendment that was passed that creates a commission that's supposed to look and investigate
Okay.
all these different aspects of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Then another piece that we have in the bill deals with. And people may think that this was already being done, allowing gun data to be collected. There's certain data that was not being collected. So now this establishes the ability
That's
for the state.
surprising.
Yes.
Okay.
So there was one point.
Why wouldn't we, is what I would say.
Well, it goes. If you look at nationally, they've tried to get public health, allow public health to collect data, because the issue that these are public health issues, and they haven't been able to do that. So we have that. We have some mental health language in there, increasing access to that. So I think
Okay.
I think our bill. Again, I think it goes at the most specific issues that need to be addressed right now.
Yeah, it sounds like where there's some refinement that's needed, and to enhance kind of existing, but isn't far-reaching. Like a lot of these feel like tweaks and adjustments to what laws that are already kind of on the books.
Yeah, I mean, there were some issues that when the House passed theirs, the way a bill usually goes is a bill will go through, the bill gets drafted, gets filed, the committee will have a hearing on a bill. Now, the bill may change or expand after the hearing.
Sure.
But they've had a public hearing.
Right.
So there was an issue with the House when they did this, that it just went straight to Ways and Means.
Okay.
And then they had an issue with the Senate because we wouldn't do their bill until we had hearings.
Okay.
So in our bill,
Yep.
we actually, the Public Safety Committee actually had hearings on all the gun bills.
Yep.
They then made a comprehensive bill out of it. and then we voted on that bill.
Sure.
Now, the bill was different from the House.
Yep.
But so the critics are trying to accuse us of doing things in the dark of the night and
Okay.
Similar to the method that the House used.
Okay, but in fact, that's not the
But
case.
that's not
Yeah,
the case.
Got it.
So
Okay,
we've
okay.
been very transparent about this. And again,
Okay.
I think long-term,
Okay.
well, this is one of the bills that there's such a big difference between the House and the Senate
Yep.
version. There are many bills that go into conference and never come out.
Right, right.
So we're hoping that, they'll be able to find a middle ground so that
So we can get
that's
it-
just, so it can pass.
get some additional
No, because
protection.
there's always the concern now
Yeah.
is this, the Senate passed it, I think 37 to 3.
Yeah.
If the bill significantly
Sure.
changes to the House version, it could be a tough for some of us to vote for this bill if,
Right.
if it really goes
Right.
exceeds what we expect.
Right. Yeah,
So-
and yet you're trying to, you want to support something, but
Right.
it may go too far.
Yeah.
Well, again, if folks have questions, that's the SAFER Act passed by the Senate is Senate Bill 2572. So lots of great information. I know it's a busy time of year for you, so
Thank you.
thank you so much for being here. and-
Just one quick
Yeah,
update.
Yeah, please.
House is coming out with their budget, I think this week.
Okay.
It'll be done by the end of April, then we will be doing our budget the 3rd and 4th week of May.
Okay. All right. So the May update will have more information on the budget.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Great.
Great.
Senator Moore, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have today on the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, thanks to Senator Michael Moore for taking time out of his busy schedule to bring information to our community. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Red Sox.